Chadwick, welcome. Thrilled to have you here, man. Thanks for joining me. A longtime customer of Fastr and a director of digital marketing at Sur La Table, and would love to, just quick intro on yourself, maybe a little bit about your role, your background, and then a little bit about Sur La Table would be great.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me, John. Pleasure to speak with you. Um, so I'm Chadwick Radis. I've been at Sur La Table for 12 years and a director of site merchandising for the last 3 years. Um, as the director of site merchandising, my focus has really been about creating that engaging, seamless experience for our customers, really showcasing our products and our brand that really ignites inspiration the way it does when you walk into our store, right? So bringing that shopping experience and that same sort of sparked joy in our online experience. And then just a little bit about Sur La Table. So we are actually approaching our 53rd anniversary, right? So for over 50 years, we've been inspiring cooks, both professional and at home. And it's really focused around helping people make and share great food and entertaining experiences. And we do this through a couple ways, right? We offer our premium kitchen tools, inspiring and beautiful, entertaining tabletop collections, and then, something really unique to us is our in-store cooking classes in our culinary locations, and we also offer cooking classes on surlatable.com for anyone who's not located near one of our stores. And really, just our goal for Sur La Table is it's really simple, right? Make it easy, exciting, and inspiring to create something amazing in the kitchen. We want to be that destination brand for chefs of really all levels, and a brand that chefs of all levels can really trust.
And you do such a great job. We love working with you and your team, and love the brand, and we're also customers. So love.
We're happy to have you.
Yeah, love interacting with not only your digital but your in-store experiences too. So, well, thanks for that. And you've had a great run at Sur La Table. You've probably seen a lot, and so we want to kind of dive into a couple topics. But
Sure.
before we do, you can't have a conversation these days without talking about AI. It's
Mm.
everywhere. It's in every conversation. It's probably in every meeting in some way. So I always like to just, as we're all looking at this and learning, and is to just start with, like, what's your go-to AI tool? Could be personal, could be business. I'll share mine too, but, like, what was your last, like,
Yeah.
what was your
I
last?
mean, you're 100% right. It is part of almost everything we do professionally. My favorite use cases and the one that I've really honed my skills on is really over insight development and analysis. I mean, just this morning, I was sort of reviewing our homepage performance, which we power through Fastr, right? So pulling in zoning analysis, pathway reports, something that would take me hours to really analyze, come up with hindsights, recommendations, was able to prompt it to do it within minutes, after some validation, of course, and some follow-up questions. So it has been a time saver just in terms of how we look at the business. And then I was able to even prompt it with, like, what are some recommendations for future opportunities and optimizations that we could potentially test into. So it's been a big unlock, and it definitely fuels the way we think about the business and the strategies specific to content creation.
Yeah. Agreed. And so, are you using a variety of tools? You got any favorite there? Um,
I mean, ChatGPT is
yeah.
just always up in my browser.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, the memory has just been fantastic, right? I mean, it just keeps me coming back. So it's interesting to see, like, how that's becoming, a nice moat for them. And so I just love that it's, it can just remember conversations from, you know, from even, weeks or months ago. So yeah, so I use it quite a bit too. I mean, so my last chat here was we're working on some premium support and updating our service levels, and just being a thought partner on that, right? For how to
Mm.
think about communicating around support and service level. So it's that was my last chat, that was my last go-to. But yeah, I find it as a nice great starting point as a thought partner, and
Hmm.
it's really changed workflow. I gotta say. So at every level, even your level, my level, like all of our levels, it's like it's really kind of changing the world in some interesting ways. So
Yeah.
so I'd love to from here, let's dig in, maybe talk a bit more about digital and commerce and get your perspectives, what's working for you, where you think things are evolving. So we're on AI, so we might as well just start there and talk about, it's really kind of changing the game for merchandising, recommendations, personalization on site. Some really exciting things that you can do and some things that, we're hoping are going to come. But, what are you currently like experimenting with? What's working? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, so we're definitely using AI as a sort of like a mind shift internally, right? Trying to really meet the customer where they're at, and sort of how they're sort of like, how are we evolving and meeting them as their sort of behavior shifts. Um, so we've had to really change our mind shift internally, and trying to fuel AI to sort of embolden those customer needs. Like I sort of mentioned, right, we're using AI to sort of analyze that behavior in real time, predict what the customer wants next, and then like really discovering how we can like automate content creation and merchandising updates at sort of a one-to-one level. And as it relates to sort of merchandising in general, there's really like two things we're looking at in developing AI strategies around. One is how we integrate content and product discovery at a one-to-one level. So going beyond global merchandising, right? So same customer sees all the same content and products for the same search query or landing page, right? So we're actually developing strategies around these customer segments, and then using AI to help some creative predictive merchandising tactics based on the individual customers' past actions, but also trying to predict that next best action that the customer is most likely to take. And then on the second piece, something we're exploring is how are we really using AI to help solve for that potential, I guess, decision paralysis. And again, this is like creating that store experience online, creating those conversational guides, um, and integrating them into the customer journey, but really doing it in a seamless way that feels like it's beneficial to the customer and also sits within our brand core values, right? So, and we've got a whole content library, recipes, culinary classes, products. It just goes beyond product descriptions. And how are we incorporating all of that into that customer experience with, a real focus on driving down those exit rates in those conversational touch points.
I love that, bringing the in-store, online, and you do a great job of it. I really applaud you on that. And it's a good segue maybe to talk about like how has it changed you mentioned a few like content and strategy topics, but how has it changed your digital, your content strategy, how you think about that.
Yeah, it's really about testing and learning what's resonating with customers, right? So being with Fastr, right? Content generation is not something we could really do easily or at scale previously. So being able to optimize key landing pages, finding out what kind of elements within a page really resonate with customers, what type of customers and where they're coming from is like something we're continually optimizing and learning, and key points of the customer journey.
Yeah, that's great. And I know you have a lean team too. So, that sounds like it would amplify the amount of content and the amount of work. So how do you navigate that with a lean team and everywhere we go, right? And teams are getting smaller or leaner and being asked to do more. So that's a tough challenge, right? How do you navigate it?
Yeah, I mean, AI is sort of like the unlock for that, right? So remedial task that we know there's process efficiencies for. We're at a bottleneck by sort of tech enablement, right? Those resources have their own strategic priorities. AI sort of unlocks all of that, right? We can now use AI to sort of take those remedial tasks, automate them, and allow a lean team to really focus on the insights and really push the business forward by removing a lot of those, you know, less sexy tasks as part of the day-to-day job.
Yeah, I agree. We see that too internally. Has it changed how you think about like roles or org structure or hiring anything like that that
Yeah, I mean, it definitely does. It's a skill set that's being developed in like real time across the organization, and we're all learning. shared learnings, right? So uh, it's a collaborative effort across the entire organization and something that we create office hours around just to ideate on. It's a constant discussion point because we all don't know what we don't know. And everyone is just sort of sharing their learnings. And then it's upon each team to sort of take those learnings and optimize it for their own workflow.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, cross kind of company learnings, right? Cross departmental, super, super important, right? Because a lot of it, although the roles may different or vary, a lot of the concepts and strategies, they do cut across. So similar, it's interesting. We were having a leadership meeting last week talking about this exact topic of, more internal learning and knowledge sharing just around like what's working, right? With
Mm-hmm.
AIs and we've got a lot of folks internally kind of innovating, inside our business. And so it's like, how can we get that out to, to everyone and then maybe even eventually out to like, partners and customers and, share what we're seeing. So that's great. I love the growth mindset, continuous learning process.
Yeah, I mean, it's a total shift because tech is no longer the bottleneck
Yeah.
to anything, right? We can use AI to help generate and figure out what the best path forward is. I mean, it doesn't go away completely, but we can now create web extensions that we would have not needed developers for, uh, just as someone without any developer background. So that's like an entire new unlock for all parts of the organization that we're really excited to sort of roll out within the back half of the year.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think so this era is like really exciting for me, probably for you as well. It's
Yeah.
really, I think, it's really helping kind of the creatives, right? Really, emerge with, the ability to impact in a bigger way than they ever could before. And just do more full stack, right? Just, and
Hmm.
right, impact the business in interesting ways. And, there's a place for developers and engineering and, kind of tough problems, but there's also places like in the worlds we live in where it can be, it can be automated, it can be seamless, it can be end to end, and you can empower the business to move faster and make impactful decisions. So that maybe that's a great segue into Faster, and I would love to just
Yeah.
like double click a bit into, I think you've been a great customer. I think you push us into some really interesting like use cases, and they always seem to be like very interesting and successful. So I think you're I applaud you and your team on just like thinking about, where else you can take us. But, how has Faster helped you in your words? What value do we bring? And if, you have any metrics or anything that you could share, it'd be awesome too.
Yeah, I mean, it's enabled us to really develop content and page components. We're on Salesforce on our Salesforce storefront without the need for any front end to sort of build it into the system. So, it's really created these like endless options of what we can execute on. If we think we can probably build it with Faster. Previously, it wasn't previously possible. So there's been a couple things. So it's basically powers our whole homepage now. And we've created guides, inspirational landing page, testing to what channels those resonate with. And then something that I love also as well as enables like on the fly content overrides, which are just needed sometime, right? We don't need to overhaul the whole tech org to run a site replication because we've something fell off or not executed properly. So it's enabled us to be really, really agile.
I love that. I love that. And I would imagine it also hopefully has unlocked not only speed and agility, but also being able to run some of these campaigns on different parts of the site. It's helped with revenue and conversions and you had
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. On that point, so specifically around our homepage, so since we've launched with you guys consistently, the revenue per visit on the homepage has been about up 8%. And it's, almost directly attributable to the components you were utilizing with Faster. We're still learning and testing which content resonates the best, but
Yeah.
product carousels, content carousels have been really, really successful. And we've actually started to evolve that and bringing sort of that chef authority through uh, chef tips and guides, using those videos and sort of short form content to just engage our customer, not necessarily leading to conversion, but just lowering the exit rate and keeping them involved with the brand. So those have all been really exciting use cases for us. And it's been a great as we uh, beyond the homepage, look at different parts of the business, um, specifically our culinary business. We are currently testing using Fastr a bunch of components on what resonates within for the culinary customer. And how it differs for our new customers to return customers, um, because it's an experience, right? We're selling experience. It's a lot different than selling a product. So it's been sort of fun getting some of those learnings.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. That was super, super helpful. I think you touched on a couple interesting things too, where you're also experimenting with, different UX and different UI and different ways to interact with that customer, to as you mentioned, to kind of bring that in-store experience online and to, serve that culinary customer as deeply as you can. So, beyond content, I think you're also looking at like, experimenting with just different, UI, UX interactions. Right?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and it allows us to really build it and iterate on it pretty
Yeah.
quickly.
Yeah, yeah. Fantastic. Well, this has been great. You've been super, super helpful. Thanks for sharing all your perspectives, both, with Fastr and around Fastr. It's always great to just hear from smart, brilliant people like you. So I appreciate the time. Chadwick, thank you so much for sharing. Thank you so much for your time today.
Of course. Pleasure.